craziest stats in the NFL is that since the league expanded to 32 teams and 8 divisions of 4 teams, there has never once been a year that a team didn't finish first place in a division after finishing last place the year previously. That is over 2 decades worth of time that has happened at least once every year in one of the 8 divisions. And so with it almost being time for the 2024 NFL season, I thought it'd be fun to go through and look at the 8 candidates to go from worst to first in the 2024 season. But before we get into the video, I want to take a second to ask you to please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. It really helps us out. If you're a fan of the NFL, you'll love this channel as we release multiple NFL-related videos every Tuesday and Friday all year long. And once the NFL season starts, every Thursday and Saturday to make the content much more fresh for your viewing enjoyment. But that's it for the spiel. Now, back to the video. Our least likely worst to first candidate at number 8 is going to be the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots were one of the worst teams in the NFL in the 2023 season, landing them the 3rd overall pick, which turned into Drake May. And beyond that, I think the Patriots have probably gotten worse in the offseason as opposed to getting better in the offseason. The New England Patriots got rid of legendary head coach Bill Belichick and replaced him with Gerard Mayo, who we have never seen as an NFL head coach. Yes, he may end up being really good, but it's hard to imagine he could be better than such a good coach like Bill Belichick. The argument in favor of the Patriots is, oh, Belichick didn't have a locker room anymore. But either way, I think he still had the ability to coach the team. I just think that Belichick kind of lost the ability to be a good GM. And I especially think that because there were stretches of the season, I think 3 straight games, the Patriots allowed, it was 13 or 10 or less points than that 3 straight games and lost all 3. That shows you how bad the Patriots offense was last year, in spite of how good Belichick was able to make the defense. And let's be real, Belichick was always a defensive first head coach. That was always his bread and butter. Beyond that, though, the Patriots also lost a good number of players on their offense and defense during the offseason, both due to trades and free agency. And their first round draft pick, Drake May, hasn't looked that good in camp. Yes, there is a world where Drake May comes in and ends up being a really good quarterback. And maybe some other things break right for the Patriots. But if all of that happens, you still gotta beat the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, and the New York Jets. All 3 of those teams are competing for the playoffs and likely have Super Bowl aspirations in their sights in 2024. That is not a recipe for success for a Patriots team that really doesn't have many assets in-house to speak of. Again, there is always a possibility in a 17-game NFL season that any team can put together a good enough record and pull off enough upset wins to win a division. But I think it is way more likely that the Patriots finish last in their division than it is that they finish anywhere other than last in the division because of how good the division is compared to how bad the Patriots are, both on paper, in terms of schedule, and everything in between. And so I would be shocked if the New England Patriots were able to win their division, which is why they're number 8 on this list. At number 7, we have the Carolina Panthers, and what might be the most Carolina Panthers thing is that when I was going to try to make an AI-generated image for the Panthers, I literally couldn't. AI wouldn't let me do one for the Panthers. Every other team, fine. Panthers? Nah, you can't do it for the Panthers. That's just the Panthers summed up in a nutshell, which is why they're 7th. I think the Panthers are every bit as bad a team as the New England Patriots, and their prospects might be even more bleak than the Patriots' prospects. And that's just because we already know who they have in Bryce Young, at least to an extent. Yes, he could take a sophomore leap, but at least Jaden Daniels could be, a CJ Stroud year 1 and actually be a really good quarterback for the Patriots. It's really tough to believe that the Carolina Panthers are going to be anything other than pretty bad like they were last year. In fact, the only reason I have the Panthers above the New England Patriots is because of their divisional opponents. In the NFC South, the best team in the division, in my opinion, is probably the Atlanta Falcons going into the 2024 season. And I would honestly probably take each of the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, and the New York Jets ahead of the Atlanta Falcons, which is why the Carolina Panthers have a slightly better opportunity than the Patriots. And while I think the Panthers and Patriots' likely outcomes this season are pretty similar, I do believe the Panthers actually have a lower ceiling than the New England Patriots. And their path to winning the division is literally just everybody else in the NFC South sucks, and the Panthers squeak in with like a 7-10, 8-9 record and win the division. That's the only way the Panthers are doing it, because they are not adding enough additions this offseason to improve this team. Yes, a new head coach can help. Yes, bringing in a wide receiver like Xavier Legette can help. But the Panthers also didn't have a high first-round pick thanks to the previous year's trade of Bryce Young. And the Panthers also have the problem that they traded away Brian Burns during the offseason. So while you do have some additions to this team, you don't have as many as you'd expect for a team that was the worst in the NFL in 2023. And you also have some pretty significant losses on this Panthers team. And so all that boils down to they are the 7th most likely team to go from worst to first, and I would honestly be shocked if they pulled it off. At 6th most likely team to go worst to first, we have the Tennessee Titans, and this is where we start to get into the realm of I think it's actually possible. I don't think it's likely in the Titans' case because the AFC South does have some other pretty good teams in it, like the Jaguars, Colts, and Texans, all of whom I think will finish with above 500 records. But the Titans are still a team that could absolutely have some things break right for them. We did see some exceptional performances out of Will Levis in 2023. Yes, mostly what we saw wasn't great, but heck, if those performances are what we get in 2024, he might be a very good quarterback that could help lead this team to some wins. Beyond that, the Titans have added some guys like Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, and L'Jarius Sneed, all of whom can be absolutely exceptional players if things break right, but also could be busts for a Tennessee Titans team that might not be able to house them. So again, there is a path for the Titans to compete for the division. If everything breaks right for them in their rookie draft picks, in their sophomores, in their free agent signings, in their head coach addition, yeah, this team could absolutely start to compete in the AFC South. But it really is a story of everything needing to break right for the Titans. I'm not so confident in a lot of their new additions that they will break right, at least in year one. And I think losing a head coach of the caliber of Mike Vrabel is going to be more of a detriment to the Titans than it's going to be a boon for them. And so that's why I have them the 6th most likely to go from worst to first. But hey, they actually have a shot, unlike the Panthers and Patriots, who there's no shot. At number 5, we have the Washington Commanders, and the Washington Commanders were a team that actually wasn't terrible at the start of last season, but they knew the direction this team was heading, and so they traded away guys like Montez Sweat and Chase Young, got some assets in-house in exchange for them, and basically started a full-on rebuild, which, I mean, let's be honest, made a ton of sense given the fact that their quarterback of the future was Sam Howell. Now, I'm not saying Sam Howell is not a decent quarterback, but he's certainly not a quarterback you want to build a team around. However, their 2nd overall pick, Jaden Daniels, I would say might be a quarterback you want to build your team around. Not only is he an exceptional runner of the football, he also had 40 touchdowns to 4 interceptions in his final season with LSU. That is pretty insane. Remember, when we were talking about Joe Burrow's insane season at LSU, he was 60 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Now, obviously, Joe Burrow's season had a lot more touchdowns to go with it, but the ratio is the same, which shows you how effective and safe a passer Jaden Daniels is, along with his ability to run the football. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think the Commanders are likely to come and win their division. There's a reason they're still in the bottom half of the worst to first candidates on this list. It's because there are still a lot of holes in this Commanders team. I think their quarterback situation is good in Jaden Daniels, and yes, he could absolutely hit or bust, but given the possibility that he hits, gives them a bit of a leg up compared to some other teams. As well, I think their wide receiver room is quite strong, led by Terry McLaurin, who I think can be an absolute stud if he has a good quarterback throwing to him. And they have some really good defensive tackles up the middle like Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. However, they did lose a number of other big guys on their defense, such as the aforementioned Chase Young and Montez Sweat. They got rid of Fuller as well in their secondary, and this is because the team is in a rebuilding mode. And so, while yes, you've had some nice additions with Jaden Daniels, you've brought in a new head coach in Dan Quinn, who could be a very good head coach and has been to a Super Bowl in the past with the Atlanta Falcons back in, 28 to 3 days. But I think the Washington Commanders are still a few years away from truly competing in the NFC East. As well, when you talk about a team going from worst to first in a division, you also have to talk about the other teams in that division. And in the NFC East, you have both the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I will acknowledge both teams have some pretty big question marks. On the Cowboys side, you have Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, and Dak Prescott, all of whom are looking for new contracts, and none of whom have gotten new contracts, at least at the point in time that I'm filming this video. I'm hopeful for Cowboys fans that they have signed at least one of those guys by the time you see this video, but it's not looking very likely. And so there's so many question marks with the Dallas Cowboys in terms of their star players and how long they'll be staying with the team. They might decide to hold out for a little bit in terms of their training camp attendance. CeeDee Lamb already is. As well, you have Mike McCarthy, who's a bit of a lame duck head coach, unless they can figure out how to make it to a conference championship in 2024. And the team as well is just aging. I mean, their running back room is the aging Ezekiel Elliott and Rico Dowdle. That is not a great running back room for a team that has absolutely thrived in the running game in past seasons, with the exception of probably last year in 2023. And then on the other side of the coin, you have the Philadelphia Eagles. And then on the other side of the top teams in the division, you have the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles had one of the best records to start the season in the 2023 season and made it all the way to the Super Bowl in the 2022 season. However, their ending to the 2023 season was absolutely atrocious, including a first-round exit at the hands of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This Eagles team is one of the biggest question marks in the league because we don't know what version of them we're going to get. Are we going to get the team that was one of, if not the best teams in the NFC and potentially the NFL? Or are we going to get the team that could barely put together a win in the latter part of last year? I don't know what version we're going to get, but if it's the latter version, the weaker version, the Commanders could have that possibility of moving from worst to first, which is why I placed them at number 5. Because let's be honest, they're better than the New York Giants. At number 4, we have the Los Angeles Chargers, and I debated putting the Chargers even higher on this list than number 4. Not so much because of their team, but because of their division. Yes, we all know they have the Kansas City Chiefs in their division, but the other two teams are the Las Vegas Raiders and the Denver Broncos. Two teams that I absolutely think a Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert-led team can be better than in 2024. Remember, this team was basically 500 in games that Justin Herbert started and finished in 2023, and they never looked that good in those games in the first place. This team is a stronger team than a lot of people remember. They made it to the playoffs in 2022, and yes, they've lost Keenan Allen, they've lost Austin Eckler, they've lost Mike Williams. You don't totally know what the offensive weapons are going to be for this team. But they're not building based on offensive weapons. They're building an offensive line. They drafted Joe Alt with the 5th overall pick to go with Rashawn Slater, to be two bookend tackles to help protect Justin Herbert. If some of their rookie and free agent and young wide receivers can end up being good assets, and if they can get a undrafted or a late round pick or free agent running back to be what Austin Eckler was for them, because remember, Austin Eckler was an undrafted free agent for the Chargers, then all of a sudden this offense can be a little bit better, and maybe they can start to actually get some value out of their high-priced defensive players like Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, and Derwin James. The elephant in the room for the Los Angeles Chargers is always going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. It's really hard to imagine a world where the Kansas City Chiefs do not win this division. But there is a world where something happens to Patrick Mahomes, such as an injury. We all hope it doesn't happen, but that's really the path for the LA Chargers to win this division. If Mahomes isn't the quarterback in Kansas City, all of a sudden the Chargers might be able to win this division because they probably are already the second best team in this division. That's at least my read on this team, which is shocking to say. And so what places the Chargers at 4th is I think they do have a legitimate path to the division. Only one thing needs to happen. But that one thing is basically the Kansas City Chiefs somehow implode. And that's very unlikely to happen, which is why they're not in the top 3 in terms of odds for going worst to first. Our number 3 team in terms of worst to first odds is the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Arizona Cardinals have a fairly similar path to going worst to first as Los Angeles Chargers, which is have a really good team basically implode in the San Francisco 49ers. I definitely think there is a world where the Cardinals could come into the 2024 season being the second best team in the NFC West. I think they might already be better than the Seattle Seahawks. And with the Rams losing a guy like Aaron Donald in the offseason, if they maybe lose a little bit of that magic they had in 2023, there is absolutely a world where the Cardinals are the second best team in this division. However, as I said before, it's going to be really hard to overthrow the San Francisco 49ers within this division. The 49ers have been one of the best teams in the NFL for the past half decade, and heck, a few years ago, everything you would have expected to be needed to happen for the 49ers not to do well happened. They lost Trey Lance, they lost Jimmy Garoppolo, and they end up putting in Mr. Irrelevant himself, Brock Purdy, who ends up being a stud and basically doesn't lose a game as a starter until his second season in the NFL that he both started and finished. And so, with all that being said, you might ask, how on earth do you have the Cardinals as the third most likely worst to first team? And I'll start out by saying, I do not expect the Cardinals to win this division. I don't think anyone expects the Cardinals to win this division, and it's unlikely that most of these teams, in terms of an individual percentage, will go from worst to first. I just think that the Cardinals are the first team on this list that actually could be a playoff contender in 2024. I don't think the Chargers can totally be a playoff contender. Yes, maybe if Harbaugh and Herbert work really well together, things can go well. But I think a lot more needs to go right for the Chargers to be a competitive playoff team in 2024 than for the Cardinals. I mean, look at what the Cardinals have done. They were quite competitive in a lot of their games in 2024. Yes, they ended up finishing with the 4th overall pick and the 4th worst record, but this was a team that was definitely making strides and being competitive in a lot of games. They added Marvin Harrison Jr., a generational potential wide receiver. They now have Kyler Murray healthy for a full season. Say what you will about Kyler Murray, but he's definitely a step up over coming back from injury Kyler Murray and Josh Dobbs and whoever the hell was playing quarterback in the middle. I don't even remember off the top of my head, and it is not worth looking up right now. And as well, you started to see guys break out towards the latter part of the 2024 season, like Trey McBride within this team. Jonathan Gannon is a defensive expert and has absolutely looked to improve this defense. They drafted a really good edge rusher in Robinson at the end of the first round in the 2024 draft. And so the Arizona Cardinals are absolutely building a team that should be very good in the near future. And so if Kyler Murray is a good quarterback in 2024, that is a big question mark, I do acknowledge. But if he is, this team could be a very competitive team. And when you're a team that could go 10-7 compared to a 49ers team that could go 12-5, all you need is one upset and you might win the division. And that's why the Cardinals are number 3 on this list, even though I acknowledge it's unlikely they top the 49ers in this division. Our number 2 most likely worst to first is the Chicago Bears. And I hate to say it as a Lions fan. For those of you who watch this videos, you know I'm a Lions fan. And if you've ever watched me on stream, you know I hate the Bears. With a burning passion, I hate the Chicago Bears. But I can acknowledge the Chicago Bears actually do have a realistic path to go from worst to first in 2024. Starting out with what the Chicago Bears have done to overhaul their team, they added first overall pick Caleb Williams, who they got in a trade from the previous year to give up Bryce Young, which ended up working out fantastically for the Bears because in the second half of last season, they weren't even that bad a team, I'll be honest. They had some pretty good games in the latter half of 2023. They also added Rome Odunze as a top 10 wide receiver pick. They traded a 4th round pick to pick up Keenan Allen, and they'll have a full season with Montez Sweat as an edge rusher, and Jalen Johnson ended up breaking out as one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL in 2023. That is a lot of really good additions, and it's not even bringing up additions like DeAndre Swift at running back. This team has absolutely overhauled their roster in 2024, given Caleb Williams, first overall pick, every potential asset he could want to compete. The only reason the Chicago Bears are not number 1 on this list is because they are in one of the best divisions in football in the NFC North. The Chicago Bears are likely better than the Minnesota Vikings, especially given JJ McCarthy is out for the season, and I'm not sure how good Sam Darnold will be able to do with that team. But beyond that, the Bears would still have to overcome both the Lions and the Packers, both of whom won playoff games in 2023 and are definitely also teams on the rise, much like the Chicago Bears. To be clear, I don't think that the Bears are going to win this division. In fact, I'm not totally sold that any of these last place teams will win the division. but I think the Bears are the second most likely because they could absolutely be a very competitive team in 2024 with all the additions they made. And if those things break right, if Roma Dunze is a stud at wide receiver, if Caleb Williams is CJ Stroud-like, if Keenan Allen is not just fat and overweight and actually a very effective player for them, much like he was last year with the Chargers where he had a career year in his 30s, then yeah, the Bears can absolutely be one of the best teams in the NFC and win the NFC North if those things break right. So number 2 makes sense. And our number 1 most likely team to go from worst to first in the 2024 NFL season almost feels like a cheat to say it's the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals, a team that only a few years ago made it to the Super Bowl. A team that coming into last year was one of the most bet upon Super Bowl favorites. The only reason the Bengals were not competing at the top of the AFC North in 2023 was because Joe Burrow spent a good chunk of the start of the season playing hurt and not being very effective, and spent the latter half of the season being completely injured and out of the lineup, and they had Jake Browning as their starting quarterback. With all that going on, the Bengals still finished 9-8 in the toughest division in football, where you had 3 teams making it to the playoffs. The Cincinnati Bengals are way too good a team to finish last place in their division, which is why they're number 1 on this list. I think they have a very realistic chance of winning this division. I think it's a neck and neck race between the Bengals and the Ravens for who wins this division, but the Bengals have one massive advantage over the Ravens, and that's strength of schedule. The Cincinnati Bengals' 3 uncommon opponents compared to the rest of their division is the New England Patriots, the Carolina Panthers, and the Tennessee Titans, also known as number 8, 7, and 6 on this list as the least likely teams to win their division. These could well be the 3 worst teams in the NFL in the 2024 NFL season, and the Bengals get to play all of them, and none of the rest of their division gets to play any of them. That is a massive advantage that the Bengals have over the Ravens, and I don't think the Ravens are a significantly better team than the Bengals. And so based exclusively off that, and the fact that the Ravens have their 3 uncommon opponents being the Texans, the Bills, and the Buccaneers, that is significantly harder than what the Bengals are going to deal with. And so I definitely see a path for the Bengals to show up and win the AFC North and continue the streak of 1 team or more going worst to first in 2024. But that's it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like and comment below. Help us out, help us grow. Reminder, starting in the NFL season, we'll be releasing videos every Thursday and Saturday to give you the most up-to-date and accurate content at the time of release. But that's it for now. I'll see you all next time. Peace!